In the ages of a rude and primitive civilization, man believed that in dreams he became acquainted with a second actual world. Herein lies the origin of all metaphysics. Without dreams, there could have been found no reason for a division of the world. The distinction, too, between soul and body is connected with the most ancient comprehension of dreams, also the supposition of an imaginary soul body. Therefore, the origin of all belief in spirits, and probably also the belief in gods.
So when I get influence from dreams, it's mostly evocative moments.
Evocative moments.
Dreams, often the meaning isn't communicated with language. There's significant phrases in my dreams all the time, but that's a small part of it. It's always images that you can translate to language and draw meaning out of this translation process. That's what psychoanalysis is. Not interpreting dreams, but it's interpreting interpretations of dreams.
Wait, what?
Full stop.
According to psychoanalysis, you can derive meaning from the unconscious first by what kinds of images you get when you are taking random sensory stimulus, nerve signals along the spine combined with your environment, what you're feeling, and what's been going on in your life. And it spits out a scenario.
But why does it feel so real sometimes? Like when you're dreaming and like you just like, what the fuck, I'm dreaming, but I'm still here. Like I don't just instantly wake up. It just feels like very lucid.
Because this your brain is the same thing happening in the same place. Your thoughts are happening in the same place that your dreams are happening.
Yeah, you're just not, your senses are like basically muted, I guess, during that time.
Our brain spends most of its time imagining things about the future. We're predicting that any action we engage in is going to cause these events down the line. Or sometimes we're trying to reconstruct the past in order to figure things out about how to act in the present. And so we're used to telling stories to ourselves. We're used to putting ourselves into hypothetical situations. And when you shut down your sensory input, that's all you have. And it can get very vivid because you don't have other things imposing on it.
To the day we're born, we read the Bible.
And that's the first level. Your unconscious reveals itself through these images. And then you remember these images only vaguely, usually, because the unconscious is not accessible. That's its nature. You have memories of impressions, and not everything makes sense in dreams always.
No, it doesn't. I'd be dreaming some crazy shit.
Like often in a dream, one person is actually two people from your life, sort of merged into one. Like they might phase back and forth throughout the dream. And part of the psychoanalyst's job is to have you describe a dream and make judgments based on how you interpret these logical inconsistencies. So psychoanalysis is all about language because it recognizes that we only can interface with our unconscious through these linguistic interpretations of fundamentally non-linguistic events. The unconscious, it can appropriate language for its uses, but it doesn't know language. It's way deeper than language. All animals have an unconscious. Most animals are mostly run on unconscious. I imagine being a animal is a lot like being in a dream state.
Shout out to all my animals out there that are running unconscious right now.
As usual, one of the big issues is the government sucks.
Government totally sucks.
Pittsburgh or North Carolina in general, the United States, what are you referring to specifically?
The nature of states in general, of governments. At this point in history, it is counter to the interests of humanity. Very superficial understanding of what a community needs to thrive culturally. I mean, I would say they're just interested in money, but they're like doing a bad job at being interested in money even.
Yeah.
It's a self-sustaining organism. Its only purpose is to continue to exist and to expand its power for the sake of power, not for the sake of anything beyond that.
My estimation is that there's a far deeper problem, and the far deeper problem is a lack of faith in humanity and a lack of interest in nature and people. And I think you can see this everywhere. I mean, the biggest existential threat our generation faces, I believe, is AI. And I think that a lot of people are like, you know, good riddance. I'm so glad that AI will take over humans. Just in general, the rhetoric is a lack of responsibility, and it's a lack of respect, and it's a lack of wonder, and it's a lack of an appreciation for beauty. It's a lack of everything. I mean, to me, it's an inversion of morals. In previous generations, it was understood that beauty and that love and these things are generally worthwhile. And I think in our generation, when we invert that with this obsession with ugliness or this obsession with damning humans, I think it leads to very little that's good. And I think the government has fallen into that trap just as the average person has. It's the zeitgeist. And I think when there isn't an interest in humanity or in nature or just in life as an experience, as a wonderful, beautiful thing, then there's less interest in supporting life. And what I mean by this is someone's like, I've lived this beautiful life, I've seen these wonderful things, and I've created this incredible art object that is the sum of my observations and the sum of my love for the people in my life and for these experiences. Here it is. It would typically be ignored in today's day and age. I listened to a modern art collector talk about how they're obsessed with looking for things that are ugly and the grotesque. And while I do love the ugly and the grotesque, I think that there's a lack of depth and that people are searching for things that are just like, it feels like anti-human. Because, well, things that are grotesque, things that are ugly are part of the human experience. It feels like the obsession is sort of what AI represents, which is something out of step with nature.
I don't know if I can entirely endorse that. I mean, I think nihilism is a big problem. I think that's worth fighting against, is the endorsement of nothing. I also very much think humanity is not the only value. There are certain things about AI art that I'm attracted to that I think is valuable for its uncanniness, for like the representation of a mind that's entirely unhuman, but that's also not something we've seen in nature. It's something of our own creation. It's horrifying in a way that's beautiful to me.
I don't find it beautiful because I think that the nature of AI art typically is, I don't think that there's a computer that we've built that has a soul. And I can't necessarily explain that at this time, but I'll tiptoe around it and eventually I get to the point where I can pin it exactly. Because it's one of those things where it's, if you disagree with it, it will take a long time for me to reason why I feel that it's there. But in broad strokes, I don't like AI art because I think that it's striving for a sort of perfection that I think is out of tune with nature. I think that a lot of AI art and a lot of AI is run by private corporations, and I think it's in keeping with their agenda. I think that it's very difficult to place value on AI art because it doesn't come from life and it doesn't come from experience. It's a computer algorithm that's supposed to accomplish a specific purpose. I think that you can say that there's something to the uncanniness of it, but I'd much prefer looking at a person or an animal's experience or just an honest expression of nature where there is that uncanniness. I feel like will always be deeper. I feel like until we get to the point where computers are sophisticated enough that they are ensouled.
Yeah, that's going to be a crossroads. I don't think soul is a useful concept, but what would it take for a computer to do something that you think is worthy of art?
Well, I don't know. What I mean by soul is I'm referring to a divine spark. I'm referring to I don't think everything's physical. I think the world is very mental. And my argument for this is very simple. I think when I was a young man, I was very obsessed with this idea of dreams and the difference between waking reality and dream reality. Because waking reality, you wake up, and at first you can remember the dream that you had, and then it starts to fade away and eventually is lost, and then you're immersed fully in this waking reality, in a world where everything's dictated by logic and a certain degree of factual information. There's a physicality and there's a inherent system to it.
With causality.
Absolutely. And then at night you fall asleep and you exist in a world that's governed by intuition. And shortly after you fall asleep, you forget about the waking world entirely. And in this world of intuition, it's sentiment it's pure raw feeling. And the crazy thing is, when you're in either one, you can't remember the other. And so after a while, I started to ask which one was more real. And the way I see it is that they both represent truth, because if a person has terrible nightmares and is in this horrible world that's governed by very intense, difficult emotions and sentiments, that will affect their waking world 100%. And the waking world would affect the inverse. And the way I see it is, it almost becomes not realistic or not fair to pin down that the waking world, the logical world, the empirical world is the first one, is the most important one. The way I see it is they both have an interplay with each other. And when I speak of souls, I'm speaking of the things, of the part of a human being that consistently goes through both. And the part of a human being and the part of who you are that exists in these different realities, be it waking, be it in a physical, material world, and be it in dreamland or wherever else this thing may go. When I say souls, that's what I'm referring to. It's the essence of a human being. It's the essence of who you are, and that can exist in a number of different states and a number of different circumstances. And so when I refer to this thing, it's something that's so deep, and you can keep with any human being that I've known. You know, not every human being is deep, and what I mean by deep is, like, a deep human being to me is someone who is exploring their depths, who's exploring the inside of them and the inside of the world. Not everyone's like that, but everyone has depth. You can explore, you can study them, you can love them, you can hate them.
Not everyone's interested in their own depth.
Absolutely. But you can, for any person, you can be fascinated by them forever because there's so much. I think with a computer, this element of a soul, what I mean, is this essence of consciousness, this essence that is transcendent. I don't know that there's a computer that I've seen or had a relationship with that has one, and I don't know what it would mean to create one, but I mean this difference between a logical state and this dreamlike state. This thing that can exist in different realities and different shapes and forms that is, for lack of a better word, ultimately transcendent. I have not seen a machine sophisticated enough to where it has the sophistications of a body and can have that complexity. I think for AI art, my main issue with it is that we have programs that are run by by private corporations and that are created and they're created generally in the name of control, not love. And for me, just with my temperament, I prefer things that are created out of love, where there's a bit of letting go of control and seeing what happens. Seeing, like, if you look outside, like I mentioned the trees before and the incredible harmonies, embracing what happens when something that's alive is living. That's, to me, that's the deepest thing. And if I may say one more thing before I quit my soliloquy, just one last point is it's like, I read a lot of religious or spiritual texts, and I notice that across culture there's an idea that demonic things or demons are obsessed with control, and that angels or more positive beings are obsessed with love. And a lot of love is letting go and surrendering and giving the liberty to see what happens and embracing it and finding beauty within it. And a lot of control is the exact opposite. And there is beauty in both, and both are incredible. Because I think you can, in most cultures, there's an idea that whether you take the darker path or the lighter path, you will reach enlightenment, and I think that's true. But for me, I prefer that path of love, of letting go, of surrender, and AI represents something that's more based on control, that sort of stands in the way of replacing love, of replacing this letting go human approach to creating. And to me, that's terrifying because it's less what I want. It's creating a world that I don't want to live in.
The concern over control, especially, I despise Spotify.
Me too.
And I don't give a shit about what they pay artists. Like, artists don't deserve to get paid for music on streaming. That's free advertising. But why I despise Spotify is because of the black box algorithms that recommend new music to people. And it's handing over control of music taste and basically people's entire aesthetic philosophies, because what you believe gets shaped by what you experience. And you're just handing that over to an algorithm that not even the programmers know how it works. And that's the crazy thing about artificial intelligence is it's not that these corporations are dictating what they do and how they process information. It's that they don't know. And it's the whole goal of it is to create artificial life. And I think we're definitely on track to create something with a soul. I don't think we're going to like what that soul looks like when we get there.
In sleep, our nervous system is perpetually excited by numerous inner occurrences. Nearly all the organs are disjointed, and in a state of activity, blood runs its turbulent course. The position of the sleeper causes pressure on certain limbs. His coverings influence his sensations in various ways. The stomach digests, and by its movement, it disturbs other organs. The intestines writhe. The position of the head occasions unaccustomed play of muscles. The feet, unshod, not pressuring upon the floor with the soles, occasion the feeling of the unaccustomed, just as does the different clothing of the whole body. All this, according to its daily change and extent, excites by its extraordinariness the entire system to the very functions of the brain, and thus there are 100 occasions for the spirit to be surprised and to seek for the reasons of this excitation. The dream, however, is the seeking and representing of the causes of those excited sensations, that is, of the supposed causes. A person who, for instance, binds his feet with 2 straps will perhaps dream that 2 serpents are coiling around his feet. This is first hypothesis, then a belief with an accompanying mental picture and interpretation. These serpents must be the causia of these sensations which I, the sleeper, experience. So decides the mind of the sleeper.